Day because it is Global International Women's Day. So you get an opportunity to be able to listen and learn, and feel free to ask any questions.
Time zones. So again, my name is Alicia Smith-Freshwater. I'm so honored to be here. I have been so fortunate throughout life to have been given so many amazing opportunities to excel, to achieve. And so we've lived in, and when I say we, I'm talking about my twin sister too, but currently I am an engineer, chief biomedical engineering, working in the field of healthcare for the VA hospitals across the United States. And I enjoy that job. And what brought me here was being a chemical engineer for about 14 years, a graduate of North Carolina A&T State University. I have a family whom I love. Of course, we all love our family. I love friends. And so I've been able to have opportunities to use education as a means of not just economic liberation, but from the viewpoint of broadening my mind so that I can make sure that I'm equipped to make the world better around me and be like an Angela Davis, who's one of my heroes, a woman, who said, and I love this quote, and I'll share this and then I'll turn it over to the next panelist. She said, "I will no longer accept those things I cannot change. I will change the things I can no longer accept." So that's why we're here, and I'm so happy to be with you all today.
Over to Ms. Erica Smith. If you could just do an introduction, introduce yourself.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I am so happy to be you. For those of us who may be clearing your eyes, we do look a lot alike. We are monozygotic twins. Alicia is my much older sister by 11 minutes. So I tried to do everything my big sister did. We grew up on our family farm. We picked cucumbers. And I was picking cucumbers in the field one day, and I just started lamenting and crying, and sweat was in my eyes. And so I wiped my eyes and I looked up and I saw an airplane. And I've always been fascinated by airplanes. My dad was in the Air Force, so we went to all of the air shows. And so I majored in mechanical engineering with an aerospace and mechanical option. After being an engineer for 10 years, I worked for Boeing in Seattle, Washington. I was a defense and space mechanical engineer who worked on our military airplanes. And after that exciting career, I have always wanted to give back. You all like Angela Davis. I like Shirley Chisholm. And Shirley Chisholm said, "Service is the rent we pay on this earth." And so after that initiative, I went on a couple of mission trips. I went to divinity school. I am an ordained minister and an associate pastor of a church. I'm also an engineer. I'm also a public school educator because I like being every woman. I am going to go hard before I go home to heaven. And so I like to call myself a social justice equity builder. So as a former 3-term state senator, as a policymaker, as a public school educator, that is the sphere of which I've decided to pay my rent. And that's to provide social justice, educational equity, closing the digital divide, particularly for minorities and women. Happy to be here today.
I'm going to quickly turn it over to Mrs. Dr. Quinn Holifield. And just to give us a brief summary of yourself.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for welcoming me on short notice. I'm happy to be here and be of service. And that is basically the motto of our family, to be of service. And it's also the motto of my alma mater, Alabama A&M University, historically Black college. That was founded in 1875, where the motto is service is sovereignty. And keeping in line with everyone's favorite hero, my favorite political hero was Miss Barbara Jordan. I remember her during the Watergate hearings of 1972, and her favorite quote of mine that she had was, "I can accept failure. Everyone fails at something, but I cannot accept trying." And what she meant by that, you have to keep going, even in the face of the most horrendous obstacles that we have to overcome in order to get to where we need to be. And I've been very fortunate to be born into a family of civil rights activists. My father was not only in the military, but he was also the first Black policemen in the state of Alabama. My mother is also a trailblazer. She was the first Black principal to serve at a non-segregated school in the state of Alabama. So this is who I am. This is where I come from. Our family, I come from a family of engineers and mathematics, and we love math, we love STEM, but we also love the arts. So we like to cultivate that. And with that, I'd like to say my second favorite quote is from Zora Neale Hurston, where she says, research is formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. So that's a little bit of what I do about myself, and that translates into what I do for a living. I'm of service to people as a public servant, making sure that the disadvantaged communities get the most of what they need to make their lives better. So that's who I am, and I'm looking forward to discussion today, ladies. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I'm just going to step in just quickly. As you know, a lot of our communications that have been going out has been another person. And that other person is Beatra Wilson. So unfortunately, she's not able to be here, but as you can tell, we have a fantastic replacement. You all should Google her. So that's part of your homework. Google some of the work that she's been doing, a lot of the things that she's been leading. Talk about another trailblazer. But she just accepted another position. Actually, Quinn, I'll turn it over to you so that you can give just a brief update as to her activity, as well as what the organization has done and how you're a part of that, leading the RAM as well.
Definitely. Like it's stated in the bio, I work for USDA, U.S. Forest Service, Urban and Community Forest Program. My supervisor was Dr. Beatra Wilson. She just completed her PhD in Forestry and Leadership Management. A little bit about our program. We service over 84% of Americans who live in urban environments. And what we look at is trying to mitigate extreme global climate change with the heat. We also try to provide workforce development. And just recently of last year, we received $1.5 billion to distribute among urban communities to make sure that they can mitigate these issues of economics, of climate change, and at their communities. And basically, we're looking to serve everyone in Black and brown neighborhoods. Basically, our program has been around for almost 30 years, but this is the most money we've ever received, and a historic amount of money, and we are already seeing effective change. What we're talking about today, transformational change. It may be small, it may be incremental. And Dr. Beatra Wilson has been a really big part of that because she's all about equity. She's all about making sure that people get the resources they need to do the things they need to live their lives with dignity and in equity. So you look us up, you can Google us, like Ms. Tina said. We're the Urban and Community Forestry Program with the USDA, and we have a lot of programs going on. And like I said, we make investments. For example, we made an investment of creating an internship program for urban forestry students from Southern University so they could get outside their zip code and experience the world outside of where they were living or outside where they were born, and be a part of the community and be a part of change. We also have sponsored students in the international programs. We have sponsored students in the Thurgood Marshall College Fund program. So it's all about making these incremental changes. We start with 1, we end up with 2, we end up with 6, and now we have 10 students throughout the programs, the various programs that we support through internships, making sure they get that training, that hands-on training that they will need to progress throughout their careers.
What I want to kick this off with, because we have quite a few young ladies that's going to be watching this now. You know, we talk about math, we talk about technology, engineering, we're seeing digital transformations that's happening, how you have to have a lot of digital skills or tech skills going into the spaces that's being developed today. As women, well, as young girls, women now, being a minority, what were some of the old tapes that were ringing in your head as you were going through? And how did those things play out when you had to unlearn and relearn new skills to step into your power? And I'll start with Alicia.
Okay. So the next question we'll start with somebody else, but I'll go first. So first and foremost, the number one thing that I had to unlearn in chemical engineering at the time that I started working only 2% of women, and this is just in the US, I'm not sure globally what the statistic was, but at that time, only 2% of women had degrees in chemical engineering. So when I first started working, you know, people would look at me as the only woman in a work team of about 20 men, right? And mostly, you know, white male dominated field at that time. But now it's more diverse, but this is 30 years ago when I started. And so I had to first realize, and this is the one thing I had to unlearn. There's a difference between being humble, you know, and walking boldly versus being cowed and weak and meek and docile. The first thing I had to realize and you know, embrace is that I can't apologize for who I am. I shouldn't. I am a strong Black woman. I deserve to be here, whether you think I'm supposed to be here or not, right? Whether you think I'm a diversity hire or not, I deserve to be here. I am a child of the universe, no less than the trees or the stars. And so walking boldly, even though I felt like, you know, at times I felt isolated because it's hard being the only one when you're the first one. And even in 2024, as I am the chief biomedical engineer for a region within the VA, we're divided into 18 regions. I am the first and only Black person, woman or male, to have ascended to this role. And so one of the things I had to unlearn is that there's a difference. Yes, you should be humble, but you should know that you have innate abilities that the Creator has blessed you with, and that you use those abilities and walk boldly and confidently in whatever you do. And don't be cowed. Don't look down. Walk boldly. Meet a person eye to eye. And the second thing I had to unlearn is that, you know, you fear, I feared if I asked the question, people would think, you know, I wasn't smart, I wasn't intelligent. But you should ask questions. I took a course in high school called WEIRD, which meant wisdom, reason, revelation, and doubt was what that acronym. It's okay to question the knowledge. It's okay to question even somebody you feel that's in an authoritarian role. You have to use everything at your disposal to find out the answer, because there is a solution to every problem. So whether you're using your intellect, intuition, or even the internet, Google and YouTube are my friends. You can even call the friend, but seek wise counsel. So those are some of the things I had to, you know, kind of unlearn, to be bold, not to, you know, try to be dainty and be a woman. I deserve to be heard at the table, even though men, and this is not man bashing, but if you look at the studies, they're 70% more likely to interrupt a woman talking than another man talking. So you got to walk boldly. You got to put yourself out there.
Go to you.
Okay, lots of lessons along the way. And I'd like to share with you that I've been in federal service for almost 44 years, and I've been with the Forest Service for 33. And in my current position, I've been here for 3 years. But the one thing that I can truly say to learn is that I had to unlearn is not to allow my independence stand in the way. And what I mean by that, you need a team in order for you to move forward. You need a team that you can trust. You need a staff that you can trust, because you can't do you cannot be a trailblazer by yourself and doing all the heavy lifting. And I'll give you an example of like Martin King. Everyone wants to give him the credit for being at the March on Washington, but just only recently it's been coming to light that Barnett Rustin was the organizer and the man who did everything behind the scenes to make sure that that march was a success. And there's not been any other example of that other than the Million Man March, who showed that you had to have people behind the scenes who knew how to organize and help you achieve that dream, that said dream. So that was one of the biggest things that I have to say take away throughout my career. You can't do any of this alone. You need a team. And it's just not a team at work, but you need a team in your personal life. And the things that sustain me is my faith, my family, my friends, food, football, and fashion. Yes, in that order, because I was born at an Alabama homecoming game. So that's part of me. In the Southern tradition, the HBCU tradition of going to football games on a Saturday, that's what I was raised in. So those are the things that keep me balanced outside of work. But again, you can't do any of these things, especially without having some type of faith in your life. You know, all these things are possible due to Christ for me. That's what I also tell my students or my mentees when we're working together. So knowing that you are not alone in anything that you have to do, there's someone who's either going through it or has gone through it, and they can help and advise you. And you have to reach out, because we don't know what's going on in everybody's lives until we have an honest assessment of ourselves, and we can have an honest conversation with those we love and trust.
Right after Alicia, but thank you for saving me, Quinn. There's something that Alicia said about being humble, but walking in confidence, knowing that you are enough. You already have what you need to make it. And definitely you have to surround yourself with people who are going to help uplift you. You have to have your faith. You have to have family. You have to have friends. You have to have a network of supporters, because we can't be in this space alone and be as successful as we want to be. I would have to say the number one thing that I had to unlearn was to, let me give you a background. We come from a family of 6 children and my mom and dad. My mom gave birth to 5 girls before she had a son. My father really, really wanted that baby boy. So imagine how he had to stay persistent and never give up. He had 1 girl, my eldest sister, another girl. Then he had a 3rd girl. And then he was, they didn't realize it, but my mom was pregnant with twins. So he got 2 more girls, but they never gave up. He had that boy. And so my brother is 8 years younger than Alicia and I. And so for those years before my brother was born, on the family farm, my parents made no distinction. The girls had to get out there and work as hard as the boys. My parents did not distinguish male roles versus female roles. We all work together. We all do the work that needs to be done. My sister wanted to play baseball. And so they said, no, this is a boys only league. You know what my daddy did? My daddy drove onto the military base. He loaded all of us up in the station wagon. He drove up to the baseball field and he signed his daughter up to play ball. My dad instilled in us, no ever allow society to define, confine, refine you to what society wants you to be. My mother always instilled in us, you can be anything that you want to be. You just make up your mind to do it. So all throughout my matriculation, I played the trombone. We played trombone. We didn't want to play the flute and the clarinet that all the other girls were playing. I played trombone. I've always been in ministry, even though I was the first and only woman in my Missionary Baptist Association in 135 years to ever ascend to a moderator position. I was the first woman elected. I graduated #1 from Howard Divinity. I graduated #1 in my class because I knew that God had given me the ability, He has given me the talent, and it's my responsibility to walk in it and understand where my power comes from. So I never allowed traditional male roles or female roles to come influence me into what I wanted to become. As a mechanical engineer, I was one of 3 girls who started in the freshman class of not too many years ago. I won't tell it, Tina, but in my freshman class, there were 3 women students at North Carolina A&T, and only one of us graduated in my cohort. And that was me. It was not without a struggle. The males would block me out. They would withhold the information, but I had to go get it myself. And it was because of the way I was raised. It empowered me to know that I can do it. It will be a struggle, but never give up and be persistent.
I think these are all fantastic. And it's interesting. How you grew up is very similar to mine. Yeah, most people would look at me and say, oh, okay. She didn't grow up on a farm. I chopped wood, I cut grass. I was the only one in my family that cut grass. Right?
With a
Climbed
push
trees.
lawnmower. With a push lawnmower, Tina.
Well, no, that was not my story.
Well, I had to
That's
push
not my
for-
testimony. I did that once and I said, okay, yeah, I can ride. But I climbed the trees. So I think we did all of that. What I want to get to is a layer deeper. We have survived that. We've excelled that. We've had parents to push us to make sure that we were just as equal to boys. And this is not a girl versus boy. This is actually singularly dealing with the mindset of a young girl, where we develop somehow in an early age imposter syndrome. Like we don't belong. And especially being minorities, society will tell you something different than what your parents are telling you. Your classmates will say something different to you. If you fail at one thing, I mean, think about being in school and you're doing extraordinarily well, and then all of a sudden you fall off. And now everybody is looking at you, everybody is coming to you. What are some practical things that you can provide to say, look at who you're surrounded by? Do you journal? But how do you get out of that? And that's the piece that I want to get to, because there's a lot of young ladies today, even older ones. It's tough for them to survive because they are the only ones. And again, when you're going into any of the fields that we've talked about, especially in STEM fields, and you're the only one, you have a bullseye. So you're constantly getting hit. So how do you get past those hits and those hurts? Who do you have to surround yourself by? What pathology do you need to do to examine the people around you that can fill your cup, because it will get empty?
Well, I'll jump in first on this one. I rely a lot on affirmations. And so whether I write them in my journal or I just type them out, print them out, cut them up, and I will paste them like Mary Jane. I'll paste them on my mirror. I'll paste them on the wall in my closet for me to be able to look at, and no matter what people are saying, I always have to go into that inner space within me to keep centered on who I am. It is definitely a struggle.
Okay, I think Alicia got stuck. Does someone else want to jump in really quickly?
Quinn, I'll defer to you.
Okay,
And
thank
then
you.
I'll text Erica.
Okay, because she's frozen on screen, so thank you. So for me, I was very fortunate to be born into a family where I had my built-in, I guess you say, psychologist with my late mother. I could tell her
A therapy?
like a therapy. Oh, Erica's back. So I was
Okay.
able to go to her and discuss, anything that I was feeling, because she had also been through it. And I also had my grandmother, but I also had other people in my life, my village, so to speak, the village in which I was raised in, people like Dr. Dee Dee Smith, who's a hidden figure you don't hear about, like Katherine Johnson. She was actually another one of the first Black mathematicians who worked at NASA. I had Dr. Alicia Jenkins, who was my Girl Scout leader. So I had mothers at the church who I could always go to, and I knew that I could trust if I had this issue or this particular problem. But for me, like my mother said that I was inherently born different, because when I was born, I came out the womb laughing. So anything that was seriously, she says the doctors were astounded. They said most babies come out soundless and then you slap them and then they scream. I literally came out like the laughing baby Buddha. And my mom was just in shock that this actually happened. So yeah, I'm a little bit different. I'm built different. And that is my superpower for me, because it allows me to say, okay, here's a problem. I know I can't solve everything, but the skills and the people that I have in my life will allow me to pivot and find some other greater, not so much as compensation and money, but some other greater and higher sense of purpose. And yes, it is hard. Yes, you do get depleted. Yes, you do get tired. But what I also say is having that positive attitude is what kept me moving through some of the darker times that I was going through, whether it was at graduate school or whether it was at you know, whether it was on the job and the various positions that I've held. But I think as Black women, we're told from a very early age that we're not good enough. And if we assert ourselves, we're told that we were bossy. I was told in the 3rd grade that I talked too much. And then I responded, not disrespectfully to the teacher. I says, well, you don't talk enough. You don't give direction. So I've always been that type of child that as I was sharing earlier with someone on the call earlier, that, you know, I asked a lot of questions. As women and as girls, we are not allowed to ask those questions, but I was persistent. That is the one word that, you know, if anything is in my mind, is to be persistent. Now, is there a cost to being persistent? Yes, but then the rewards are great on the other end. So that's what helped me keep my balance, keep my sanity. I always had people in my life to make sure that I was on the right track. And you can't surround yourself with friends, sycophants, who are just going to say yes to every idea you have. Not every idea is going to be great that you have. You need people who are going to tell you the truth. Sometimes the truth is ugly. It's not pretty. It may hurt your feelings a little bit, but you have to be able to have that confidence within yourself. And then I had this conversation with one of our staff members, a young lady who just joined our staff. And she says, Dr. Quinn, she calls me Auntie Quinn now. She says, Auntie Quinn, I feel like I'm an imposter on this job. And I said, what makes you feel that way? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I said, reach out, let's talk, let's have these weekly meetings. If you need to call me in the middle of the night, if you're having a problem. And she called me, she lives in California, she called me and she said, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I says, yes, whatever the question, whatever the answer, yes, I am here. So when people pour into you and you fill up your well, you need to take a cup of water and serve someone else. That's what I mean by being a servant leader. That's what I mean by being of service.
That's
so
right.
I'm going to come back to you, Erica, so you can finish your
Okay,
thought.
I am so sorry. I was frozen. So
okay.
am I okay now? Can you hear me?
You are.
Yes.
Okay, great. So real quick, I want to say I have 2 favorite athletes, Serena Williams, tennis player, greatest of all times, and Muhammad Ali. And so Muhammad Ali had 3 quotes that I love. The first one was, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. And so for affirmations for me, it was always pouring into myself. I am wonderful. I am great. Quinn, I am enough. I have everything that I need. And so they like to call him a draft dodger. And he said, no, I'm a conscientious objector. And so he started calling himself great, not because he knew he was great, but he said, if I said it enough, then I would become it. So I kept telling myself, you're going to be an engineer. You're going to be a mechanical engineer. You're going to be the first Boeing scholar. You're going to do this. You're going to be an engineer who's going to climb the ropes from student engineer to junior engineer to senior engineer to senior specialist engineer. And so always affirming who you are, always pouring positivity into yourself, because it's that positive mindset. And he also said the will has to be greater than the skill. You may not know something, so you need to be able to have a lifeline or a mentor that you can go to and ask questions and let them field questions. And so, but he said the will has to be better than the skill, because if you don't know how to do it, that's one thing. But if you can have the willpower to seek out support, seek out experts, be able to get that information that you need. And last but not least, he said, don't quit. He absolutely hated training. He hated every bit of it. But he said, if I suffer now, I can live the rest of my life as a champion. So that tenacity, that persistence that Quinn was talking about, having a positive attitude, but also understanding the importance of self-care, getting your mental care together, exercising, having your physical care in place, and also pampering yourself, supporting yourself.
And then I'll just tack on about the self-care. And I have to be honest with you all, being around predominantly males, like every day of your life, well, 5 days out of the 7-day week, what I learned is that when my social meter gets low, you can tell who's the extroverted twin and who's a little more introverted here. We all know, we can tell right now, right? When my social meter gets low, in order for me to recharge, I have to go off the grid. And when I say go off the grid, I can't talk to anybody. I'm not on my phone. I'm doing things to recharge myself mentally and emotionally. And I use reading. I'm an avid reader to escape my current reality and go into my dream state of things that make me happy. So I'll have to be honest with you. That's how I recharge. And sometimes it might be watching an edifying series on Netflix. It could be watching TV. It could be reading a great novel. That helps me unplug, but it heals me. You know, it recharges me. It's more than just the physical exercise. For me, it's the emotional. And it's the emotional aspect and mental aspect as well. And the second thing that I feel like a woman needs, she always needs that confidant, because life can be hard. Life is lifing. And look, people can be peopling. And then you can't complain at work with other coworkers, because you should never gossip with coworkers, especially if you're a leader. So you need that confidant that you can be vulnerable with. You can be open and honest. You have to reveal to truly heal. So that person tells you the truth, tells you when you're wrong, but also affirms you when you're right, and tells you, yes, you deserve better. So those are the two things that have helped me make it, as a leader.
I appreciate that. And look, we talk about all body positivity, affirmations, feeding the mind, feeding the soul, surrounding yourself with the people that need to uplift you. I wanted to go a little bit deeper with that, because we've seen a rise in gender-based violence. We've seen a rise of, unfortunately, suicide. And we've also seen a rise of, and that's across the board, regardless of age and professional endeavors. But we've also seen a rise of just professional women actually leaving the corporate space or C-level suite positions because of all of the pressures. And some feeling those imposter syndromes. So you have all of those things that's compounding. Knowing that you are enough, because you are. Finding those people that pour into you to make sure that they're filling your cup are always important, and seek help. So we have young ladies that's on this call. We have young ladies that's going to be listening to this. More importantly, we have young men also within our organization that's going to be looking at this. What are you doing to be accretive to someone's life, including your own? Accretive, positive, supportive, progressive. Okay, I will turn this, thank you, ladies. I'll turn this over to Carbel.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tina. And I'm glad that you actually touched on it, because there's a question that just came to mind that I really want to ask, because just listening to everyone, they touched on a lot of common themes in terms of collaborative endeavor it is that you pursued in. And I'd like to ask, actually, how important is collaboration? How important is inclusion when driving transformational change within a leadership position? Because just listening to all of you, you've been at leadership posts, you've been in the process of mounting up to that post. And how was the experience, and how important is the collaboration within that space? And not only that, but what role do you think that men in leadership, or aspiring men in leadership, can have in driving such a change? That's what I'd like to ask. And I'd like to start with with Dr. Holifield, if you can just kick things off us.
Okay. So in terms of being a leader, basically on the job, your network is your net worth. Let me repeat that. Your network is your net worth. and the people that you associate with on a professional level, they can open doors for you where you have never been before, and literally carrying the water in the bucket and spreading your message or your gospel that you're trying to do about, transformational change. We had to do that constantly in my current position, where we had to look at our partners and says, hey, our agency is antiquated in some respect, especially when it comes to social media and the digital world and communications. And our partners had already had networks built where we could use their platforms to get our message out, especially with the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. We had no way of amplifying that information, but we used that through our partners. And as for the men, most of these organizations, these partners that we deal with were mostly male, mostly white. So they had another network that we could tap into to get our message across about, the at that time, the impending notice of funding of this $1.5 billion. So men can be your ally. But too often as African-American women, we have found ourselves, especially in this country, where Black men have used us for their own personal gain and had not reached back in order to help us, reach that same level of how shall you say, not necessarily notoriety, but that same level of being recognized as a leader, of being recognized as someone who can put forth an idea and make sure that we follow through on that idea and make it a reality. And in my case, making it a small transformational change, and taking that change and making it a policy where it could be adopted by other organizations. That's where the change really happens. And sometimes you don't always have to have your name attached to that. It's just doing the work and getting the job done. If someone else wants to take the glory, which they have done in my case, I'm going right ahead. Yes, I'm being humble, but also I'm not going to be arrogant enough to stand up in a meeting. Oh, I wrote that speech for the chief. Oh, I wrote that. No, you got the job done. The name is out there, because you have to think about, as you grow older, and I am definitely older now, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? Like Miss Erica talked about Muhammad Ali. Now, there have been many heavyweight boxers since Muhammad Ali, but in our minds, he is still the greatest and perhaps the only one that we will remember for a long time. Yes, there's Mike Tyson, but because Muhammad Ali moved through life with such a grace and gratitude, and at the time he was going through with the conscious objector, that was a great lesson, because he was saying, you do not define me. And what we say that even as a leader, you do not let someone control your narrative. You are in control of what you say and how you want to be perceived. Because once you let somebody else control you, like when I was a little kid, they said I was bossy. I had to be in charge. Yes, that was true, but look where it got me today. So if you let somebody take your individualism and mold it for what their purpose is, you will never achieve the greatness that you already have, the greatness that you were born in. And we're wearing purple today. Not just because it's International Women's Day, but purple is the color of royalty. Color is the color of power. Alice Walker wrote a book about the color purple and a transformational gift that women brought to those characters. So purple on this particular day can be your color for the rest of your life, for transformational change, just for what it stands for. So I'm going to turn over to Miss Alicia if she has anything to add to the gospel of purple.
Quinn, you said it. I'm going to let you have it.
My granddaddy was a preacher, okay? So here we go.
Yes. Look, I can't add to that, Quinn. I can't add to that. But I will say, you spoke of allies. So when it comes to men in leadership and your colleagues, co-workers, or even your friends in school, they have to be an ally more than in name only, right? What is a true ally? You have to be an ally in your actions. One of Erica's favorite quotes is that it's not the, It's not the wounds, the mortal wounds of your enemy. It's the silence of your friends. Mm-hmm. That's what hurts most in life. When you have people who sit silently by and watch atrocities happen, inequity happen. And so my expectation of men who are currently in leadership or who are aspiring to be leaders is to do what Quinn said, have those, courageous conversations, but take action and implement policies that promote better equity. For instance, Erica talks about, banning the question on salary, right? Salary history when you're accepting a new job, because women traditionally are paid less for performing the same role than men are. And one thing that I love about the federal government is that because we work, our salaries come from the taxpayers, everything is transparent. You can look up our names and see what we make, and it's standard. If you're a GS-13 or if you're a certain level, regardless of if you're a man or a woman, you're going to get that same pay, and it is published. So I would hope that the men who are in leadership become more of a talent scout beyond their circle, beyond their network, and engage those women, minority women, especially, and recruit them for roles that where they are underrepresented. So that's all I'll say. And I think that will lead to significant change. Having the men take more action, and not just as a part of being an ally, but also to implement policies that promote equity.
Carbel, we're definitely going to have this conversation again, because there is so much in that question. One of my favorite stories in my Judeo-Christian heritage is the story in Judges with Deborah. And Deborah was the prophet who had to encourage and lead Barak into battle. And so he was like, oh, well, are you going to go with me? And she had to tell him, well, I'll go with you, but the reward or the accolade will not go to you. It will go to a woman. And so I've had to learn in these spaces to navigate. Not only do you need allies, but you yourself need to know how to serve in the second chariot when the senior servant is scared or ill prepared. You have to be bold enough, even if you have to do it behind the scenes. I have lost count of the numbers of policies and pieces of legislation that I had to let a man carry it after I did all the work. But he got to put his name as the primary sponsor, and I signed on as a co-sponsor. And so a few of them did allow me to be a second named primary sponsor. But let me tell you what was achieved. Before in North Carolina, before my tenure as a state senator, we have hundreds of board positions and appointments by the governor, and so by the executive. And no one was monitoring or tracking those appointments in different agencies and on boards who are making powerful decisions that impact the constituents all across North Carolina. And so I filed legislation and proposed legislation that would have a balance and have aspirational goals as it relates to representation of women, representation of minority groups, so forth and so on. I also was able to commission a Black woman's study group. And that Black woman study group was appointed by the governor. It became a committee. And guess what? I wasn't even tapped to serve or chair it. But at the end of the day, it was the legislation that I proposed and that I was willing to allow an ally to take it across the finish line. So just because they won't let you do it, if you know it's going to benefit other people, find you an ally who gets it. If the whole salary question, you can no longer in state government jobs ask for a salary history for women. Well, why would we constantly answer a question that's going to undersell us and undercut us in our salaries? And so I really like that type of work that is done. And so find an ally and then do everything so all the ally can say is, yes, I'll do it. You've done all the work. All I have to do is just put my name on it and carry it.
I'm going to ask just one more question. What advice would you give to all the young women that are going to be watching this, who are aspiring to bring forth a transformative skills or attributes do you believe is crucial for us as young women to start developing in this season and in this generation, whether it's in the public or private sector. And I would like to start with Miss Alicia, if you can just kick things.
We got it. Thank you so much, Carbel, for asking that question. And so I will say that you should have technical mastery. And I know some of you are matriculating in various schools now, but it's very important that you have mastery of production, efficiency, maybe analytics, software applications like Power BI, Python, if you're using Google Sheets, slides, or if you're using Microsoft products like PowerPoint or Excel, etc., making sure that you have those digital skills and abilities, right, from the technical aspect. But it's so important that you also balance that and work on soft skill development. And soft skill development you can do with your involvement in this organization as well as other organizations. And what is that soft skill development? Interpersonal skills. Are you able to organize an event? Can you collaborate and work in a team with others? Effectively communicate. Do you have negotiation skills? Do you have the ability to network, establish a network and work together with people? Are you able to articulate your ideas? Can you strategize? Can you communicate that purpose? Because here's what I want to tell you. The technical skills, your mastery of your craft, whatever you are pursuing passionately, that will get you the job. But it won't keep the job for you. You won't be able to keep that job if you don't master that soft skill development and that leadership training too. So I would encourage you, as you are learning, the regular academic studies, focus on the soft skill development as well. And then just realizing that, we're not figureheads. We have a head that can figure how to navigate these spaces and do what we need to do to achieve. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Quinn or Erica.
Okay, I'll take that one. Along what Miss Alicia has just said about those technical skills that you need to add to what you learn academically. I can give myself an example. Like I said, I've been working since Moses has been alive. In fact, that's a joke between my friend and I. I call her Moses. She calls me Harriet, if you know the connection there. But to make a long story short, for myself, never stop learning, never stop honing your skills and refining those skills. Like even at this long stage in my career, I've decided to take what they call an outward leadership program for the next year and a half, because what I'm noticing is that there's a shift in the generation. There's a shift in how people work. There's a shift in how they communicate. And I need to be able to be there so I can help guide that next generation to where they need to be. In terms of like other interpersonal skills, I say make sure that you maintain your integrity. Do not sell yourself short. Do not value yourself any less just because someone is at this level and you're still at that level. You have a brain. Continue to develop it. And there's so many other things I want to say, because like I said, I'm hearing the voices of the ancestors, my grandmother, my grandfather, my mother in my head right now. There's so much I want to tell you all. But for those two things, like I said, continue to hone your skills and maintain your integrity. And also have empathy, because everyone is not the same. Everyone is going through something different, and having an empathetic ear will help you make those decisions you need to make, not only for the better of the team, but for the better of the community and whatever environment that you're working with. So honing skills, integrity, and empathy. Those are things I would add to that magical box that you're building right now. So Miss Erica, you're on next.
I would add just two things to the box. Take a public speaking class or join Toastmasters or learn how to debate. Too many times women are cut off in the conversation. And so you have to know how to get in quickly and keep talking and get your point across before the man in the room steals it. And I'm not man bashing, but that's just happened too much. And if we didn't all have the gift of gab coming from our grandfathers and our ancestors and their ability to preach and speak, but it's because I've been able to articulate with precision is how I've gotten recognized and been able to accomplish in some of the positions that I am in. The second thing that I would ask you to do is to learn about generative AI. AI is taking over the world, and we have to have an understanding of AI. But beyond that, we have to understand the digital divide has severely impacted minorities and women, and that there is so much algorithmic biases that exist throughout every system, from hospitals, who gets a stent versus who gets bypass surgery, your insurance premiums and policies that make it virtually impossible to get a good credit rating. When we look at how companies use proprietary software to analyze thousands of resumes and the
you very much once again posted in the chat that I'd like to ask. So one of our previous ambassadors, her name is Tabitha. She's also starting university. She's doing her law degree this year. She asked, how have you navigated gender-related challenges in different aspects of your life and journey? That is her question.
Okay, well, I have met it head on. I'm a very assertive person. I don't say I'm aggressive, but I am assertive. And so when I saw that there were policies that made it virtually impossible for a woman to be able to stand up for herself in the workplace against harassment, I filed legislation to change the process. In the North Carolina General Assembly, prior to this piece of legislation, if a woman was harassed in the workplace by her supervisor, she had to report it to her supervisor. Now, how much sense did that make? And so then there was this big ethics committee that were all men who all had ethical issues themselves. And so to hit that head on, I pointed out the research and the policies, how the policy is flawed. And so when you look at gender-related challenges, I'm sorry, sometimes we just have to stand up and confront them face on. Be very direct about it, know your information and do your research, because information is power and no one can argue with the facts. And so when you present the facts, I found that to be the best way to handle challenges that I've encountered, particularly with gender bias in the workplace.
Anyone else?
And I would just add to what Erica has shared. You have to call it what it is and face it head on. I was involved in an interview panel, and I had the hiring official say to me, well, she revealed in her interview that she is pregnant, so I don't think we should hire her. And I had to tell him right there and there, hold on. That's actually a law against that.
Mm-hmm.
You are discriminating for that reason. And so I had to call him to the carpet. And I even shared with him that, hey, if you, even though he was above me, I had to challenge him and I had to go to HR. So you have to call it what it is. I did not fear reprisal because of what we call whistleblower protection in the government. But if you see it, you have to say something about it. You can't let it ride. Now, there are times where silence is golden, but I'm looking at the question in the chat too on, those challenges. If you don't address them, who will? And there's a way, if you want to remain anonymous, there's a way that you can do that in addressing inequities. But if not you, then who? So the way I've navigated that.
And Alicia, when you
Uh-huh.
address it, it may not help you, but it'll help the
Yeah.
ones coming behind.
That's right.
Exactly. Exactly. So Erica, thank you. Thank you. Quinn, I didn't know if you wanted to
Oh,
add
yes.
anything.
Well, I feel like, ladies, we are living parallel lives because I've experienced the same thing that both of you have experienced, and on a personal note, in my long career, I had to file 2 EEO complaints, equal opportunity complaints. And everyone was telling me, oh, don't do this. They're such a good person. They're such this. And I said, no. And I said, for almost 20 years, I was working as a soil scientist, never promoted, wrote all my research papers. And yet I was noticing my white male colleagues. And mind you, I'm the only Black female scientist, and there was only 3 at that time in the Forest Service. And what had happened is that I was noticing the inequity in the sharing of resources. They would make up some excuse. They would tell me, no, I can't do this. And I said, wait a minute, because I had to go back to my daddy because he was a GM-15 in his lifetime. And he says, no, you need to file whether you like it or not, because this cannot continue. And we did file. I did lose. I did take it to regular court. I lost there because what we had was that the patriarchy was still against me, mostly white, mostly male. But they, at the end of the day, what they discovered that they may have not liked what I did. They may not have liked what I said, but they had to respect me. And like what Miss Erica said, it made it better for that next young lady who came behind me in that same position. She did not have to face those obstacles. So those are types of things where we have to take our personal integrity, and it has to match what we say and what we do. Now, every time you make a choice, and if you take in your physics course, for every reaction, there's an opposite reaction.
There's an equal opposite reactive force.
Yes.
Right. That's in physics. That's every engineer learns that, every scientist learns that, and that's what karma is too. But you have to realize this sacrifice, yes, it may be a long and difficult journey, because let me tell you that those 2 EEO complaints took a toll of 10 years out of my life. So you have to be willing to sacrifice, knowing that you may not win this battle, but you definitely will win the war for the next person coming behind you.
Congratulations on doing that. That takes a lot of self-confidence.
Oh, I lost a lot, not just on a personal level, but it took a lot. I mean, it took a toll on my health. That was 10 years. 10 years of purgatory, because I won't use the real word here.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get together.
Hey, when's homecoming?
Yeah.
Wow. Just thank everyone, all our wonderful leaders, for just taking time off the day, off their busy schedules. And I just want to thank you guys once again. I just want to thank all of you once again for just imparting it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you. This is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to make sure that I brought powerful women together, all within your own right, to come and share, to be transparent. And look at this, we're already creating a family. We're talking about homecomings now. And Carbel, you're right, we have homework, but the homework is not just the things to feed ourselves, but we have homework on each other. So let's make sure that we continue to collaborate. We lift each other up, and we do those things that most people will say it's impossible, but we know that they are possible. And I'll close with this, and this is something I remember Shonda Rhimes. Most people, you know who she is. I mean, she came on the scene and created Shonda Land. So she commanded a space. That's what I implore each one of you to do. Command your space, own your space, because you belong exactly where you're planted. She said this, she said, in a world that tries to whisper, you can't, remember you have the tools to say, I can, and I will, because I have. Thank you again for tuning in. Thank you again, ladies, for joining. And I look forward to continued conversations, and please, we invite you back again. Wish you all a wonderful International Women's Day. Go make a change and a difference.